So I've finished the level design for the game. As you can see here, I've got 4 walls, all right, parented by a game object. Why would I do this? Because this way I can actually control all of them at once by manipulating a single object. I can also disable all of them this way, right? That's why I basically added these separately and made the walls object as their parent. I could extend this more by adding, for example, trees later on, and then get the walls and the trees and the grass and everything interactable into an object called environment. So for now, let's stick with this. And so far, to just test, I've got the ball. For some reason, it's not moving because I haven't set the speed to 10, for example. There you go. It's working perfect. Now, next step would be adding the cubes, all right, or the collectibles. So let's do that. Now I'm going to create a 3D object. Let's call it collectible. All right. Here it is. It's a collectible. And I'm going to need a new script called collectible. And collectible, all right, collectible is going to be dropped on top of this. Okay. And the collectible's going to check if the ball has collided with it, then I need the collectible to be disabled, right? And then add a score, for example. So to do that, I'm not going to need the start or the update methods. I'm going to need something called void on collision enter. And on collision enter basically says that if something collides with you as an object, all right, then do whatever is inside here. Now, what we want to check for is that we want to check if, all right, if collision dot game object dot tag or name, all right, or name equals, we've called this ball, so I can get the ball here. I can also use the tag here, which is something that I prefer, honestly, to simply tag the ball with player. Let's actually do that. It's much cleaner. So if the collision, if the object that collides with me, all right, has the tag of player, all right, then please, I forgot a parentheses right here. Was it? Yes. Then please No. Then please disable this game object. So um, I could simply say game object dot set active false. Right? Let's test that real quick. I keep forgetting to set the speed of the ball from the get-go, so let me just set it here to 10. Okay, here it is. There you go. When I collided with it, it worked just fine. But if you notice, something that is really annoying here is that when I collide with it, it stops the ball for just a bit. Yeah, did you notice that? It stops the ball for a bit and then it allows me to continue. Because I'm literally colliding with it and then it disappears and then I can get to move through it. I don't want to have that effect on the collectible. I want it to be similar to any platformer game in the sense that it doesn't really collide with it, but when it gets into its vicinity, it disables itself. How do I do that? I can simply do that by setting this to isTrigger. So setting it to isTrigger, all right, and then I'm gonna have to go back here and say void on trigger, enter. It's basically the same thing. I'm simply saying here if other.compare tag is the player, all right, then do this, all right. Now I'm going to show you the difference between these. Let me delete this because I'm not going to need it anymore. Save. Now the collider is still on this, but it's not really colliding with something. It's checking if it has went through it, then it's going to disable it. So there you go. Doesn't stop. Okay. So this is all good now, but I need to do this a couple of times. So doesn't make sense to create an object every time and name it collectible and add the script and all of that. Also, if I want to reuse this object in another level, because in our game we might have 5 levels, it doesn't make sense to like create a new object, add a box collider, and then add a collectible script. It doesn't make sense to do that. That's a waste of time. So what Unity has, it has something called a prefab. Okay, and the purpose of a prefab is that you can use this game object in any, uh, basically in any other scene. So if I press here prefab Unity, all right, you can read about it in the documentation, but it basically allows me, as you can see, to create, configure, and store a game object with all of its components and property values and all blah 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 blah, and use it wherever I want in any scene. Okay, so we're gonna do that by creating a new folder. We're gonna call this prefabs, and then drag and drop the collectibles. Once you see this blue, that means the game object has been turned into a collectible. So now I can simply create a parent game object. We can call this collectibles, all right? And then let's set the transform of this to 0. Okay, this transform needs to be 0 as well. Let's get collectibles to be parented by it. And now I can simply move this about. Okay, let's shrink the size a bit to 0.25 maybe. Let's unify the transform. Why is it not doing that? Let me see again. Right, so now 5. No, that's too small. So 0.5 should be good. All right, and the color is a bit boring. I'm gonna make this as red. So collectible material, and the collectible material is gonna be red. And I'm gonna basically throw this collectible material on this. But let's say I didn't. Let's say I duplicated it into 5 different objects. All right. And then I move this here. I move this right here. And I move this right here. Okay. Do this. And then duplicate this. Put it all around the player. Okay. So now let's say I want to change one of these guys. Yeah. I want to add the material to them. So I've added the collectible material to this object right here. Okay. Now it would be, again, really annoying if I had to do this for all of these different collectibles. So I can simply say override all of them. Yeah, I simply clicked on override on this object that I have changed and clicked apply all, and then it applied it to all the prefabs. And when I go back to the original prefab, I'm going to notice that it has been changed as well, which is cool, right? So now I've got the ball, I've got the trigger or the collision detection right here, but the collectible itself is very static. It's a bit boring, so let's make it rotate, right? Void update. Let's make it rotate a bit. Transform dot rotate, I believe. Yes. And now it needs a new vector, so new vector 3. All right, let's say it rotates, I don't know, 2 on X, and then 0, 1. Okay, let's try that. That's awesome, isn't it? Looks a lot more lively. Let's say I want to configure the rotation speed in runtime. I can actually do that. by simply heading here, putting them as variables, as in public, collectible X rotation, and then also collectible Z rotation. I can also say Y rotation, right? Collectible Y rotation. And I've forgotten to name this float, right? And now it's all good. Let's put a semicolon right here, and then X right here, Y right here, and Z right here. Cool. So by default, all of them are going to be 0, but it's accessing this in real time. So I can go to any one of them and set it in real time, as you can see. So this can be 1. There you go. It's only that one rotating now. 2, 3. Okay. All right. So let's change the prefab again to have what we had. So 2 and 1. And then apply it all again. So then it is applied, as you can see, across all of the objects. All right. And across the prefab itself. Now, when I run the game, let me do this. All right. When I run the game, everything is going just fine. The speed is a bit real quick for both the ball and the animation. I'd like it to be a bit more subtle. So I'm going to decrease it by half. So 1.5, and the speed of the ball, I'm going to decrease this by half as well. So 5. Let's make sure that we have applied all the changes. Okay. See? Much better. Much better. I love this. Okay. Now, next up, let's add a scoring system to check if we have basically finished the game, right? So when I collect how many of these? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I collect 8 of these, it should show me a text in the middle that I have won the game. I should also create a scoring system so I can basically keep tabs on how many I have collected so far. So let's get to that in a moment.